Perfect. And before we dive into this session and with a list of questions and engaging conversation, I must mention a few things about Sid. Right, he is a doctorate in the area of discretionary efforts, and like I said, he's been a CHRO for over a decade now. And most importantly, I think what is going to be absolutely an area for us to learn from is the fact that his career spans into two big parts. One, um, where he has worked and led the HR function, say, for large, stable companies, and the second, in startups. Now, that is an individual or a HR professional that you really want to learn from. So Sid, you can now see the type of question that might just pop in as people look at you. And having said that, and that's not just the only piece where his varied experience comes from. He's worked in varied industries as well. So that's aviation, um, tech, tech product, retail, e-commerce, and I'm sure there are more that I'm not listing here right now. So with that, welcome again, Sid, and I am going to ask you to talk about your career, and of course, your our audience here is a mix of students for that matter, and young professionals, possibly even seasoned professionals as well. So as you reflect on your career on this show, talk about some things that some of us can learn as well.
Sure. So thanks for having me again. Happy to be here. I think my career has been a wonderful one, and I've had the opportunity to work with so many different people, such wonderful teams, wonderful, great founders, CEOs across industries, and I think that's sometimes been something that raises eyebrows. How can you work in so many industries, right? So I typically my response is, as long as people are around, I'm in business, right? So being in the human capital space, it's I think it's a wonderful opportunity to kind of make a positive difference, which I think is very close to my own mission, which is to make a positive difference to people and teams, and through that to the families of employees, uh, by ensuring that folks are really happy and have a great deal of engagement. And one of the ways I do that is by working with managers to ensure that where the rubber hits the road, which is the performance management conversation, that's really amped up, and that's an area of passion that I'm presently pursuing. So working with a lot of folks at different companies, in addition to my own company. So working with folks, helping HR leaders kind of ensure that their managers are really some of the best in the industry when it comes to talking to their team members, and getting that piece really solid. Yeah, so that's some of the stuff that I'm doing presently, but I think as we progress we can always explore a few other areas.
Perfect. Thank you. That's a good start. And I am equally curious to then, and now that you've spoken about some of those key elements in possibly your strengths and areas that you passionately pursue, let's continue to talk about that from a HR design standpoint. Give us some examples, what keeps that going, and where do you think you're making an impact, or generally, leaders as seasoned as you are could.
So, interestingly, this takes back a few years here. So, I think sometime in 2008, 2009, that's around the time that IDEO came up with this entire concept called design thinking, right? And I was really fortunate to be a part of a workshop in one of the companies I worked, where folks got certified by IDEO and came back to India and kind of taught some of us design thinking. I was more or less there as a HR guy to ensure that the training happens. I was quite a junior guy then. But then the idea really stuck. And I said, hey, this is what I think I've been doing. So let me explore a little more. So for our audience members, the design thinking process basically has aspects of define and then empathy. So the empathy piece is a very, very interesting piece, right? Empathy means I completely let go of my biases, my filters, the lenses that I carry sometimes while looking at a problem statement, right? So I empathize with the user and then figure out what the user needs and then create ideas, which is pretty much a divergent and then a convergent process, right? And then come to a solution. And this is something that I got inspired by. And if you kind of think of any of our many of our processes in HR, right? Uh, I think over the years I've been kind of looking at a very different way of what's the kind of impact it brings, and this is where I think the concept and the practice of HR design has evolved, which of course has now evolved into something called the diamond line. But a little more of that little later. We keep our viewers a little more glued on, right? So more on the diamond line coming up later. Let me take an example, right? Take reward and recognition, for example. Hmm? It's quite common knowledge that in many companies, rewards and recognition are, there's a huge, really fat document, probably online. So, taking up quite a few pages online. And the structure pretty much goes this way, right? So there's a committee, there's a nomination form, there's a quarterly thing, and so on. And it's quite a judicially, I would say, a very rigorous process, right? Think about it from the employee point of view, right? Um, think about a cohort of 100 employees. You have, let's say, two best employees of the quarter, and the entire process takes like good 2.5 months, right? And within this time, one of the employees has left. No, natural. You always have one of the best guys always looking out, and they know their market, right? And after these 3 months, there's probably a customer visit or an investor meet or something, and then the R&R postponed because the town hall also gets postponed. So now for 4 months, there's been no R&R. Right now, out of this 100 people, 99 are left, and then one fine day, suddenly there's a town hall, and then this one employee is awarded as best employee of the previous quarter. Right? You need to almost do carbon dating to figure out which quarter. Fair enough. Now, after this, you have 98 people who, at that moment where that employee's name is called out, feel a sharp, searing pain in their emotional world. Okay, they feel, hey, what's happening here, right? I contributed to. What about all the emotional labor that I went through? What about all that additional effort I put in? What about all those sacrifices I made, right? And there is also this automatically opposite polarity of uh, an attitude towards this one person who got this award, right? How did this person get this award, right? Must be close to the manager. And it's very human for people to have ego defense mechanisms, right? Kind of displace the anger on someone else, whatever. But at the end of it, have at least 98 employees who are not having the best positive intentions and the sentiments that are there in the workplace, right? And this one person has probably been socially slightly excluded, consciously or unconsciously, right? So this is one scenario, right? The other scenario is, anyway, what happens in this scenario is, after so much of effort and the HR business partner probably running around from pillar to post, ensuring that the nominations came on time, chasing people, waking them up,
That, yeah.
probably, yeah, very, very familiar stuff for us, right? After doing all this effort, putting in all this effort, we have 98 upset employees. Was that the intent of the reward and recognition to begin with? I don't think so, right? The intent was, now let's understand the roots of this intent and the way the design played out. All right. People walk in, I mean, unlike many of the laptops and desktops, right? We don't have a reset button in the morning where all our lenses and everything starts from zero or gets reset, right? As human beings, we walk through life with some of these paradigms that keep growing, right? One of the very strong paradigms, especially in an organization, is that people have gone through school. Most of the employees in an organization are people who've done well in school, right? And this entire paradigm of, or the frame of reference is that of ranks, and the fact that having ranks made people work hard to get that first rank, right? And then the reward and recognition mechanism draws a great deal of its energy and design unconsciously from that ranking system, saying that okay, if I give the first kid the gold medal, right, now everyone's going to run for that gold medal. Hey dude, first thing is, they're not kids. Number two, what you're giving is not a gold medal. Number three, people care for a lot many more other things than kids who are running only after that one gold medal, right? So your design is completely non-contextual, right? Instead, as an organization, what is it that
And
you
yet,
really want?
and yet, a lot of us, right, in various organizations, still have seen it play out exactly like this.
Yeah, this is absolutely the story. This is absolutely the story, and that's I think that's where I find a lot of joy. That wherever I go, I try to kind of do counterintuitive stuff, get into deeper stuff, and then see the impact. For example, we did a very good R&R design in a retail organization a couple of years ago. Right, this company was looking at turning around the entire story, having a sales culture, and so on. One of the things that we really did was, retail is about ground level, right? It's about that CSA who understands that the customers got to buy more. I'm not saying unnecessary more, but I'm saying helpful more, right? Buying good stuff means the quality of life of that customer really improves. So, what did it mean? It meant certain behaviors needed to be encouraged and then celebrated, right? So, we turned this entire paradigm of scarcity and control and authority on its head. We said, first thing, the employee knows what she or he has done best. So, let's have self nomination. Number two, we said the manager doesn't have X-ray vision or some great level of insighting that makes him or her say that, oh, this employee's got to get recognized for this or not. So if anyone's self-nominated, go ahead, give them the award. The manager's approval is required only in disapproval cases. Okay, and over 1 year, there was not a single disapproval case. Right. The third concern is one of authority. The manager has a store or a span of control that can impact the organization in crores of rupees or millions of dollars, right? Yet to give a 100 rupees award or a $1 award, he will need to go to his manager for an approval, right? So what am I doing here, right? So we kind of removed a lot of this, and we said, hey, you know what? The managers have a threshold of the minimum number of awards that are required for an employee per month. Okay, and I'll also give you the first principles of that this comes from. Many of us use questionnaires or engagement items, right? Which say, in the last 1 week, has your supervisor or someone else at work recognized you or praised you for doing good work, right? What does it mean? Now, if you have an organization of 3,000 people, okay, what should be my carrying capacity of rewards and recognition, if not rewards? It should definitely be one around 52 into 3,000 into, yeah, 45,000, 4,000. Yeah, 45,000 awards. You're actually talking about around 45,000 awards, right? And are we having 45,000 awards? Is the system designed for it? Are people primed to do it? And if so, are the vectors sorted there? Usually not, right?
Yeah.
And hence, how do you actually design this entire thing
Mm.
to give, let's say, 50,000 awards per year?
Yeah, and I'm sure it's not how we're doing it, or most of the orgs are doing it at this point in time, and maybe and that I think as an example, possibly also gives some fair idea to our audience here who are pursuing careers in HR or wanting to do that, or possibly running this, to say that it's no longer run operationally. It's not just your role to create a structure that's so rigid that doesn't work or has run out of its shelf life. I think that's a perfect example in terms of HR design, twisting it or turning it on its head. So and maybe possibly another talk show on that in detail. And curiously enough, that brings me to our, the title of today's show, which is Agile HR and the Diamond Line. And I am itching to then ask you about, the Diamond Line here. And you hinted, so I'm sure all of us are equally curious. So let's get into that, Sid.
So, sure. So, over the years, as I've been kind of working in HR, and there are two aspects of HR. One is running processes, right? When I've been in large companies, we run processes on time, efficiently, effectively, and so on. The other part of the HR story is effectiveness and impact, right? Effectiveness to a large extent can be brought in by getting in great professionals, a lot of executive sponsorship, etc. But the impact, if I need to deliver impact, this retail company, healthcare companies, SaaS, tech, and so on, each of them have a certain crux to the business, right? Think about the hospital business, right? Of course, it's about the doctor, right? The doctor brings in all the expertise. But if you are in a hospital business that is required to look at experience of the customer in addition to clinical expertise, one needs to go down to the floor, literally, right? And then you'll figure out that the experience is created by the nurse who goes in and out of the patient room 20 times versus the doctor going in 2 times or just twice a day, right? If you think about retail, it's about the CSA selling, right? If you think about, any business, think about real estate, right? It's about something else. It's about, let's say, plaster chipping off or something like that. So ideally, try and figure out what is that one thing which is non-negotiable and which kind of really, takes the business outcomes to the next level, right? So the reason we call it a diamond mine is, take any diamond mine in the world, right? Or any mine kind of a setup, right? You'll have huge machinery, you will have thousands of people working, you'll probably even have the hustle of someone running a complete city which is very close to the mine and so on, right? But all this is fine, all this is fine and makes sense till there is a diamond line in the mine where there are diamonds, right? All this happens because of that. If that doesn't exist, all this is irrelevant. However, if that does exist and all this doesn't exist, but there's a guy who over there with a shovel and a pick, right, who's going about chipping away, it's still relevant, right? So if I want to look at something which is very agile, right? Agile as a concept in HR, I didn't know that this existed. Actually, I think it came up sometime in 2015, right? But I had been practicing this from around 2005, where, typically now, take any business. Let's take a business, suggest a business. Let's do this
Let
live.
let's do okay. Let's do, now that you're talking of diamonds. Let me pick up what, jewelry.
Sure. So let's make a fair enough thing around,
Hmm.
let's say it's a retail jewelry business,
Okay.
right? So
Hmm.
what brings customers and what makes them want to buy more? Let's understand, a honest business wants to make revenue, right? And make profits, right? This is a given. Okay, we don't need a conference telling us that businesses need to be profitable, right? A given. uh, Jewelry business can be of two types, right? Normal citizen knowledge, right? Common man knowledge. One is gold focus, the other is stone focus, right? Now let us say it is gold focus, okay? Or okay, so let me give that option back to you, right? So do you want this business to be gold focused or stone focused?
I wanted stone focused.
Expected this.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry for the bias. Diamonds,
Yeah.
right? So let's say this is all around diamonds and so on, right? So so then it pays for me to understand what is my final customer's opinion around diamonds, right? So there is a lot of unconscious thing around diamonds. Can be lucky, diamonds can be unlucky. I don't know so much about buying diamonds. Will I get money back if I buy diamonds, right? As in, is it a good investment like gold? Can I instead buy these small little coins of gold and so on? So understanding this makes me understand that, hey, number one, my communication, okay, to my customers needs to be around education and awareness, and probably some business processes built in which kind of gives them that reassurance. Number one. Number two is, when the person comes into the store, right, are my staff trained to actually educate them and take their level of education to the next level? Right, so if I'm able to look into my diamond with a good magnifier of some sort, which exactly says that, it is grade A versus grade B versus grade C, because of almost minute inclusion that the customer herself can't really see, and the person's able to have an honest sale there, saying, why do you want to go for a grade B diamond when you can go for a grade E diamond? Okay, and you're not going to be able to see the inclusion anyway, and you can get a diamond that's, let's assume, right, a 1.5x the size of a grade B diamond for that. Right, now what are we doing here? We are understanding what the customer needs, we are trying to help the customer in their decision making, so on and so forth. This is the diamond line. Right, now how, as a HR person, am I going to align the organization towards this? Right, how am I going to measure, right, if all my employees are aligned to it? How do I ensure my employees have the same level of excitement to sell this? Right, I like give you an example. While I was helping out a very well known entrepreneur in Bangalore sell amazing apartments and villas, right, through the Agile diamond line methodology, it was very clear that their sales folks had to be almost consultative sales folks who are in love with their product, versus another real estate, a typical real estate thing which is around, acha, square feet ke liye kitna hai, yeah, as you raise in the apartment floors, what's the premium that you pay. So the approach that we took there was around getting very excited folks who would actually love the product. Right, so this is the quality of the brick that's used, whether this is porotherm or not. Right, this is the kind of jali that's used. Okay, this is a kind of brick, the wire cut that's used. Let's say they use wire cut, right, and so on and so forth. So much so that the salesperson's job wasn't as much selling as much as getting the customer excited about the product. Right, and at a point in time we actually went out there, and I mean, we there was a lot of, I think there was a spike event. Right, a lot of sales had to be done. We actually called this event all hands on deck. Okay, so we got HR folks, we got architects. Right, now architects are like doctors, they love to kind of stick to their the expression of their art and expertise. Right, we got civil engineers, all of them gave them a very fast thing, saying, hey, you know what, you do this, but your customers don't know this, can you please help out with this? And we are trying as a company to kind of 10x the sales. Right, we had to do it for some reason, and it worked. Right, and I think this is really about HR driving business. Right, the retail company we spoke about, R&R, those guys hit 100+% of target for 2 years.
At this point, right? I mean, and we know it works. We know this is possibly where the shift needs to happen. Maybe businesses or business departments, the front where we see sales or tech or whatever has gone in that direction for sooner, longer, whatever. HR is in there. Do you like the speed with which HR is turning agile, or how do you see this? Because while you take these examples, and you're the fact that you're doing this and this is part of maybe your organizations or clients that you consult, I don't see this happening so often. Neither do a lot of HR colleagues talk about it. So how far is HR from being agile to the point where we really don't have to call it agile HR? I mean, it just becomes like one of those things that we run versus how it happens typically in the current scenario.
So I think one approach is to actually see, and start judging and how much it's happening. The other is, what can we do about it?
Hmm.
Right, as a part of the National HRD network in Bangalore, we are trying to put together some programs for young HR professionals. Right,
Hmm.
but that's a different forum, so I won't talk about it here.
Yeah.
um, the other thing is, I also tend to kind of work with youngsters. I tend to run very private, quiet batches with
Mhm.
youngsters who would like to try this out as a accelerated learning program.
Okay.
right? And the other opportunity that exists, I mean, the fact nobody's using it means that tremendous opportunity exists there, right?
True.
And I think it's really about the business leaders and the CEOs asking more for
Mm,
this, right? And that once the demand is there, the supply will meet the demand,
true.
right? And
Mm,
traditionally, I think manufacturing and more of the traditional industries have
mm,
always had HR contributing a lot to the business
agree.
through the expression of expertise, right?
Got it.
Unless a
Mm,
person knew what this person is good at, or
mm,
let's say the trade, right? A fitter became a turner,
mm,
and so on and so forth. There was skill, and
mm,
as soon as that happened, the revenues looked better because
mm,
okay, the manufacturing capacity went up and so on.
mm,
But I think, but if I look at the nature of business, right? Some of
mm,
these businesses lend themselves a lot easier,
mm.
right? It's like you just walk through the orchard and the apples are falling all over you, right?
Yeah.
There are
Mm.
a lot number of businesses that way.
Business.
There are a large number of businesses which might not lend themselves so easily. For example, a tech SaaS startup, right?
Mm.
Uh, how would you, if it's a B2B, right? You
Yeah.
got to work double hard, right? It's like trying to harvest
What would you
cranberries.
tell? What would you then? What will be your teachable point of view to those HR supporting that kind of business?
So interestingly, there was a McKinsey article recently
Mm-hmm.
saying these are the different ways in which CHROs work and HR is managed in
Mm-hmm.
different companies. And that came out quite recently, but then it kind of gave me a little bit of a comfort that we've been doing the right thing in a place like Urban Piper, right? Now, in a SaaS tech startup that's very B2B, there are a few things you can do. One is get people excited about the product that you're building, so that that enthusiasm kind of rubs off on your customer, right? And we had really dynamic business folks who said, okay, I'm going to kind of take charge of this L&D piece in terms of the technical piece, and then build out something that everyone gets to know about the product and so on. So that's one thing. The other thing is, what HR can actually do is ensure that managers who come into the organization help every employee be her or his best every day at work. And that's something that we've actually been able
And
to do
that's
some deep
easier
work in.
said than done, isn't it?
It takes a little bit of hard work,
Yeah.
but then yeah. So the first thing is, executive sponsorship. If that's
Mm.
there, everything flies. If this is just going to be another nice little thing for the leadership team, then it's not
Mm.
going to fly.
True.
So this is what we did. Okay, I'll give
Mm.
you a very quick. I'll try to make this breathless and give it, hand it over in, let's say, 3 minutes. Okay, not more than that. So the first thing is, we didn't go through the traditional engagement survey route. We said we want to find out from first principles what makes our employees want to do even more. Want to do even more, it's discretionary effort. I want to do more in the area of my work. That's what brings about the 4 raters and the 5 raters. When we did that, we figured out that there are 5 or 6 specific factors, and we did factor analysis on a survey. And this included, self-respect is intact at work. My manager respects me. I get appreciated. I'm able to, my opinions are heard, and I do my best to ensure my opinions are heard. There was an active component also there. So using this, we started sampling 33% of the company every month. Okay. And surprise, surprise, we never made this confidential or anonymous, especially no anonymity. We said, hey, if you have something that's so explosive in nature and you want anonymous channel, then there's something terribly wrong with the culture, right? You're not able to trust your HR team to do the right thing, right? On one hand, I'm saying, respect and care and what not. On the other hand, I'm saying I'm giving an anonymous route, right? It doesn't
And for
work.
some reason, we do take pride in saying, "Ah, this is anonymous and this is so confidential, and
This
this
is
is there's
another
no way
element
we
of
could find that out."
exactly. So this is another element of HR design, right? Give one guy R&R and 98 people ka moral udado,
Hmm.
right? So this is one of those counterintuitive stuff that we've
Yeah,
been doing,
absolutely.
right?
Quite.
So
Yeah.
what we said is, hey, you know what? Only the HR team and your HR business partner will know. Okay. And if anyone actually leaks this, right, it is as big a crime as leaking salaries. That person will be given help to update their resume. I'm putting it very lightly, right? What happened after this is See, let's also understand when anonymity came in. Let's say in a manufacturing setup, where let us say people are a little more um, prone to kind of express themselves physically or whatever else, right? You want physical safety and psychological safety of a slightly different order, right? Or anonymity came in also when these whistleblowers came in. But an engagement survey isn't a whistleblower survey, for heaven's sake. You have a different channel for that, right? So that's what we did. First 1 or 2 months, I had quite a few people pushing back, especially among my peers, because they said, hey, you know what, in whichever company I was, this never happened. So I had to kind of tell them that if we keep benchmarking, we will never be innovators. Innovators can't benchmark because you're the first one doing it. Who will you benchmark it with, right? So you try it out, and if your fundamental thought process is good, you're safe, right? So we did this. So every and people started loving it after 2 or 3 months. It takes time, so it's an organic thing, right? You bump your little toe against the cart, it takes a week to heal, right? Similarly, give people time. They've always been spoiled by anonymous surveys. Now the other danger with anonymous surveys, Anu, and I know you might be looking at the time, especially all our live audience there, is this thing around um, now let's say there's a cohort of 20 people. Okay, you do your anonymous survey, you get overall average of 4.5 on 5. How do you feel as a HR business partner? Badya, right? And then you look at the Excel, the Excel sheet. Then you see only two people have given 2, 2.2, 1.5, etc. Hey, edge cases yaar, ho jata hai. So we rationalize it away. Okay. And then we move to the next team. Iska to action planning ho gaya, right? This is over. Let's move on to the next thing. After 2 months, two of the team leads of that particular team resign. Your entire business process is in jeopardy. Then you realize the people who gave those 2 ratings, ding ding, wake up, right? Now you can't do anything. Then why are you wasting the whole organization's time collecting data, right? So the anonymized approach allows my business partner to go and have confidential conversations and saying, hey, you know what, you press the bell on top of your seat, so I'm here to help you to sort these things out, right? And it also means meaningful conversations where you're reframing, right? And it solves problems in an ongoing basis. So this
And
is
I
one
know
piece.
we digressed to the anonymity, but you were also talking of the larger,
Coming back,
impact, yeah, back in urban pipers. So
coming
I
back,
do.
right? So this is one thing which goes into the manager scorecard. So we created a manager scorecard where there are 5 or 6 of these elements, and the pulse survey is one of them. Okay. The second is when the business partners do the HR business partners do the one-on-ones with team members, they have a clear sense of red, amber, green, right? So that is something they go back to the managers and talk to them and say, hey, red, amber, green, there are so many individuals who seem to be appearing in red. Are you okay with this? And there are so many individuals appearing in green. Are you okay with this? So the choice is made by the leader, because sometimes, very interestingly, the leader says, this person's red and this person's green. It's supposed to be the opposite, right? I'm okay with, because of this individual's performance or behavioral concerns. If the person leaves, chalega, but I'm not going to push the person out, right? So we have that contracting process. So that's done. And then we hold the manager accountable to it. So if there is a preventable attrition that happened, then the manager is going to lose 20 points on 100 for that quarter, right? The third is, do managers have one-on-ones? If the managers have been having one-on-ones every month, that's an easy peasy thing. So 20 points, right? We have another thing saying quality of feedback of both one-on-ones and appraisal conversations. Did the manager switch off the mobile? Did the manager make you feel great? Did the manager ask you instead of telling you? So on and so forth. 20 points for that. And finally, we also train our managers to be brilliant coaches. Okay. And coaching has been such an abused, over architected, complicated approach. I've been coaching folks from 2006, right? Coaching is a beautiful conversation which need not be complicated. So that's in-house structure that we designed and so on. And the managers need to get marks on a test that certifies them as urban power managers, right? Urban piper power, we call it U power. right? And those numbers come and sit there. So basically, at the end of every quarter, our managers get a report card, and this report card called the People Power Index is on 100, and all the leaders inside Urban Piper get to see each other's scores. At this stage, we have not made it public. The idea is not to name and shame, but rather to name and celebrate those managers who've been doing things well. And trust me, it works. And I'll also tell you why. Leaders in organizations are people who've been successful in their careers. They don't like to lose. It's not about the quantum of losing, right? It's about not losing. It's about losing those internal marks in the exam, right? And this is something that managers have loved in our organization. I actually had a manager who refused to come to me and during the coaching training in the previous quarters. Once a person saw they got a 0 on 20, this time, just guess who came and joined 5 minutes before the training program started, right? So this is how, we kind of understand the diamond line of the business and put your HR expertise behind that. Think about it as a wall. Okay, last
Yeah.
one line. Think about
Mm,
it as three walls and the
mm,
floor and a corner, right? Any corner of any room, right? As
mm,
long as it's not a circular room.
mm,
You have one wall which is a business, the
mm.
other wall is the people, and the
Yeah.
third wall is HR functional expertise.
Mm,
Where all these three walls meet is a point. Now,
mm.
let's say both these, if people miss out the third wall, you're going to have a half baked process. If you
Agree.
just have two walls, right?
Mm.
People and business, it's going to be one of those practices which is heavily runway burning, right?
Got
We'll
it.
do catch ups, we'll do carnivals, we'll give away iPads, we'll give away iPods, everything. But hey, you know what? The business results are not happening. Surprise,
Yeah.
surprise, you not used functional expertise.
Yeah. Agree. Yeah, and some of that is obvious. Some stuff is counterintuitive. You got to have like you said, right, the pulse, and then some agile and some design elements come in there. And I am one, mindful of time, but not going to let you without having learned from you about your research. Sid, so talk
Very
about it.
quickly,
Yeah.
my research was around, I did a lot of research around what brought in a discretionary effort. Okay, my thinking is like an entrepreneur. Okay, if I don't do a job, I run a business wherever I worked, right? So if you and I, Anu, tomorrow run a business, what's going to really get us excited if our team members do a lot more than is required because they want to go into any MBA college, the classes, the academic industry interface classes, and just ask the class, guys, how many of you came here, how many of you were sent here? There is a ripple of giggles, and the last line of a row of professors are shuffling uncomfortably in their seat, right? Now, why is this? The difference is want to do versus have to do. As professionals in the industry, we've seen that engagement scores are going down year by year, right? And yet companies seem to be doing better and better. So there was a difference there. So what I did is went and actually looked at the engagement concept and figured out there is a huge superstition there which says that higher scores on engagement are going to lead to higher productivity. Okay, there's an unsaid belief lurking around there. Of course, there are many well-informed folks who gone and correlated or causated engagement with, let's say, the market capitalization and so on. I have my own reservations around it. Right, they are nice to have, but through real experience do we actually see that? So that's why I went into this thing called discretionary effort. What are those things that make an individual want to do even more, right, at the workplace? And results were very interesting, right? I studied some 600 retail managers, right? Because retail is a very complex thing. You got to manage people, you got to manage product, you got to manage process, you got to manage customers, and so on. So those retail managers actually are one of those few archetypes in the industry where that person does a lot more than managers in many other natures of industries, right? So when I did this, I got some very interesting results. The first thing is, people need to be good at their job. If people are not good at their job, they don't feel like doing even more. So knowledge and skills is the first thing. The second is a sense of autonomy. If the person is allowed to do things within their job and not like aisa kyun kiya, vaisa kyun kiya, right? Interestingly, the nuance is micro monitoring is okay, micro management is not okay, right? So your dashboards, your analytics, AI, all that's going to help that. The third is influence. If I can influence people within my span, including upwards, then my propensity to put in discretionary effort goes up significantly, it peaks. And hence, it comes back to that original thing which ties into my mission, right? I am working with companies these days to work with leadership teams to make each leader a better performance coach. And this is not like that guy is going to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning, wear shorts and kids, and run into the field, right? So, coach, leave coach around. Just call them better performance conversations. And believe you me, there are so many managers and organizations who say, oh, this has really worked well for us, right? Because those conversations are human. When conversations are human, relationships build. When relationships build, employees want you to succeed. When your team members want you to succeed, your job as a leader is done.
And
I'm
yeah,
done. I'm
yeah,
done.
and yeah, super. No, that's interesting. I'm sure that you will, or our listeners will find a way to get hold of some of your books that we know about. But and I know I still have possibly quite time for a couple of questions. So quick ones there, right? Um, you've done your doctorate, and I do want to have a perspective on learning, right? Platforms like this one, in terms of being able to learn beyond just the academics. I do have my own reservations about what young professionals are taught in those colleges, with all due respect. And are they ready to bring that impact, and how does and it's an ever changing thing, more I think with more speed now than earlier, right? So how would you, or what would your take be, and what would you tell these young professionals entering, irrespective of any field, right? I mean, not just HR, but uh, just getting in there and staying relevant, staying innovative. How does one do that for a decade, 2 decades, where everything's changing every, I don't know, 6 months, 12 months? What would you tell?
I think it's a very human process. And I just want to call out the mischief that you've been doing. You've been kind of getting me to talk really fast, and then you saved up time by front loading stuff. And then now you have space to ask me a few more questions.
I am looking at my time though, but I know I will. I'll get to
Yeah.
that on the next. Some of this might just be fitted into the 60 minutes or 50 minutes.
Yeah. Let's try and give more value to our listeners and viewers, right? So I think one of the biggest problems of working remotely has been that this very aspect of getting basically see and learn. That entire socialization aspect, that is the area of research in HR called socialization, right? One of my very good friends, Dr. Sunil Singh, did his PhD on this organization socialization processes. As we grow more and more virtual and remote, right, there are going to be organizations that will say, no, 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 come back, we will prescribe. And because our organization learning is going down, there's also the individual n is equal to one perspective, right? Where as a leader, I know, see, how does it grow upon you, right? There are folks who come from specific business schools who are known for expertise in a certain way. It's because it's all up there in the air. You walk into that place, you'll pick it up. You'll see seniors, you'll pick it up. You'll see your professors, you pick it up. These are mental models which are like very plug and play kind of stuff, right? You work with someone, you kind of automatically adapt. There's this thing saying that you are often the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, right? And as folks like MentorKart actually bring in opportunities like this, right? You have leaders who are available to you, and then you slowly replace the 5 people with really high caliber, peak potential, talent people. Then your average itself is going to peak in your local average, right? And these are some of the things. It's not knowledge, it's probably a lot of native intelligence, right? And it's it's about going and spending that time. And today what's happening is folks are ready to give time. Folks want that time, but they don't know how to meet. It's about creating that platform.
Super. No, that's. I'm sure as valuable. And with a wrap on this, right? You have to tell our audience, how does it, what does it take? Of course, you've touched on so many things, and they've possibly made their own inferences of this. But how does one stay upbeat about this whole thing? Remote versus hybrid versus all of this trend. It's confusing sometimes. Some of us who've worked in all office all days in a week versus all remote, and then now hybrid. This is this here to stay? What's your take on this remote future of work trend? And with that, I think I will ask you also to wrap up by giving any valuable advice that you have, and we'll call it uh, the wrap.
Sure. Sure. So I think remote work is definitely here to stay, remote and hybrid. Okay. Often there is the archetype that comes up is remote means I can't meet anyone. Well, that's unfortunately true. When COVID was there, you couldn't actually go and meet anyone. But today, COVID's gone, the lockdown's gone. So remote can also mean you regularly meet. Okay, the first thing. The second thing is remote is uh, it's all about choice making, right? When you make your choices, also live with the outcomes, right? Remote is going to mean, for example, in one of the organizations, we made it very clear that hey, if you want remote, there are going to be implications of this. Okay, remote means your documentation load is going to go up significantly. You're going to be marked on it. You're going to constantly put your fingers to the keyboard and constantly update what you've been doing, how you've done it, and why you've done it, because others need to know what you're doing and how you're doing it. That's it, the organization's knowledge base is going to go up, right? So don't expect a in situ work style for remote working. No, it's not going to work that way. You got to do a lot more documentation, right? That's when people said, oh, that's not interesting, I don't want to do documentation, I'm coming to office, right? The third thing is about being flexible, right? Ask people why they want hybrid or work from home, right? Typically it is I'm traveling, I need time with something else, and so on. Give options to make those trade-offs. Okay, if someone wants to work, let us say 5 hours a day or 4 hours a day as a full-time employee, give them that choice so that they can be honest and open about it, right? Don't force people to become furtive and a little manipulative, where work from home becomes work for home, right? And then there is this very uncomfortable feeling, choking feeling in the room where nothing is getting delivered, yet people are always on calls and so on, right? So it's about finding out real world things, making it possible, and telling people upfront why something's possible or not possible. If it's going to be a Series B company going to a Series C, it means the team has expanded, the number of employees has exploded. You need resident knowledge to be passed on. You need real relationships at the workplace beyond a 13-inch screen, right? And there are also going to be constraints on how much you can spend. You can't have a jamboree once in every quarter, right? You're looking for a better return on your dollar. So make choices, but make choices, be honest about it, and give managers that option. You could be in two different teams. The next day gets work from home, you don't get, but your manager's got to be out there and say, hey, this is the reason it's working and this is the reason I'm not able to give it, I'm sorry, but that's life for you.
Yeah, going back to the whole trust and not hiding behind some policy. Super. Thank you, Sid. This has been valuable. there are, of course, questions that we will dive into. If there's any other resource that you think our listeners will benefit from, then I'll invite you to also put that, as this goes on our media. But yeah, with that, I'm going to call it a wrap. I am keeping an eye on the time. I've had enjoyable discussion. It's always nice to be chatting with you. I'm sure some of this will go off screen as well, but thank you once again.
Thank you for being a wonderful host, asking me tough questions, keeping me on time, nudging me very subtly, and of course, the entire MentorKart team for having put all this together in one cart.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.